Hello, welcome to our wireless and mobile application on my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to learn about the App Inventor, as it was our topic for today, the App Inventor 2 environment. Topics expected will be the designer. The designer has a palette, viewer, components, and properties section, and we will be learning things that we have to deal with our application using those sections. Next would be the blocks. In the blocks tab, definitely will have to deal with the block section and the viewer section. And we will find out what are these sections are for when creating your Android application. Now for the requirements, you really need to have a Gmail account first. And when you're done with your Gmail account, the next would be setting up your account for an App Inventor 2, making it easier for you to do that if you only have your web browser with you. And the other one, you really need to have an Android device. I prefer an Android device with the Nougat and above version. Now, what is this App Inventor all about? According to their official website, it's a cloud-based tool that allows you to build apps right in the web browser. Now, according to other sources such as Wiki, they said that App Inventor 2 is an open source web application, and originally it was provided by Google, now being maintained by Massachusetts Information Institute of Technology. Demo. For our demo, we will start with the Designer tab. We will be starting with the palette, then the viewer, then followed by the components, and lastly with the properties. Let's start with the demo. Anyway, before I begin with the demo, let me just tell you something. Okay? This video does not include a tutorial of how to set up your account from Gmail and up to the App Inventor 2. But I will just show you what it looked like when you are in the App Inventor 2. When you already have your App Inventor 2, definitely you will be brought up with this menu. Okay, but if you don't have, definitely it's easier nowadays that you can go to that website simply because you can just Google it up, write the word App Inventor 2 via Google, and from the search results, definitely it will be the first one to be brought up there on the list. Okay, so when I try to click on this, definitely I will be brought back into or redirected into this view. Okay, so since I already have some of my projects already before I created this video, I already have two in the list by now. But for now, since I just wanted to show you about the details and the palettes, I can just show you one of these. Okay, so to start with, okay, this is the palette that I'm trying to tell you about. Okay, under the designer. Now, how did I know that we are in the designer mode? This button here on the right side tells us that we are already on the designer mode. If I try to click on the blocks mode, then the output will be, or the display will be changed again according to that selected block or selected button. But for now, let's start with the designer. The designer has the palette. The palette composed of the user interface, the layout, media, drawing, maps, sensor, social, storage, connectivity, Lego Mindstorms, experimental, and extension. Okay, so let's start with the basic form under the palette. We have the user interface. The user interface allows you to select any of this. You can choose a button to place a button onto your application. You can also place a checkbox, a date picker, image, a label, a list picker, a list view, or a text box. Any of those can be used in this application. Okay. Next, we have the layout, the media, okay, the drawing animation, the maps, and the sensor. All of this will can be drag and drop onto your application. But what we're after for this lesson is only on the things that we can see on the user interface. So we can now move on to the other section. We have viewer. Viewer allows us to view our application, okay, or allow us to preview our application before it has to be tested and run. Okay, definitely when we are creating an application for desktop, we tend to use Visual Studio. And compared to Visual Studio, it also has that feature that we can also use the viewer to view the forms before it has to turn into a window. This time, we are looking at the forms of the application. Next, we have the components. Okay, the components has a list of the objects that can be seen on your viewer. In this case, we have 4 objects on our viewer. The one thing that we can show you by now, I can show you by now, is the things that are in the label. Okay, but imagine if you have several objects here in your viewer, and you can particularly select one of those. The other way around to select that particular object is through the components. Okay, and that's why we have a list here in under the components. And with that, we can rename or delete an object. Okay, the other thing is the media, but I'm really not using this, okay, for this demo. That's why I'm after with the 4 main, okay, section. Next, we have the properties. The properties will give you a property of a selected component, whether if you select an object under your components or an object that is being selected under the viewer. Okay, so keep that in mind. When you select something here, it will change how your components will look like, and also with your properties. So just in the case that you click on the button, only the text will be showing here, and the other attributes of that or characteristics of that object will be listed here. So not all are identical. Okay, next. Now that we're done with the introduction of the Designer tab and all of the sections that are mainly used when creating your application and building application, next would be the Blocks tab. The Blocks tab has the block section and the viewer. Okay, let's go back again to that web browser. Okay, on my web browser, okay, you can see here the blocks section and the viewer that I mentioned on my presentation. The presentation also includes the things like in the blocks. Okay, in the blocks section we have the control, the logic, the math, text, list, colors, variables, and procedure. Those are the built-in, okay, for creating a blocks. Now, what are those blocks for? The blocks are containing structure. Whenever you try to click on the control, it will give you a list of instructions, a list of structure that you can use to create your application or programs. When you try to click on the if, then that means you are creating a conditional statement. Again, it is under control, okay, block. The for each tells us to create a looping statement. Right now, it's raining outside here. I don't know if it will affect my video recording, but please bear with my recording. The viewer tells us, okay, the kinds of codes that we are building here. Think of it as a Lego that you need to snap each of the block. Okay. Next, going back to the block section, I need to tell you about another code here. The code for each of the object also has their own codes. But let's try on the text number 1. txt num1 also has codes in it. structure for programming when text number or the text box get a focus, then do something like this. Otherwise, when it got the lost focus means that um, that object does not have the focus order. When we say mouse is not really now selecting it, okay? Right, when you hover it on another object, that means that it's lost focus method. Next we have the button. The button also have the when button was clicked, then do something. That is what we need here, okay, in our application. Okay. Now let us talk about the things that can be seen at the top of our App Inventor tool. Now, at the top we have at first the projects. Okay, when we try to click on the My Projects, this is what will happen. Okay, and next you can also start a new project. Okay, and connect. Connect means you need to use the companion, emulator, USB, and preset connection, hard reset, which I discourage you to use right now. What I really wanted you to use is the build option. Under the build tab, you can choose from any of the two, the QR code or create an APK file to be saved on your computer. And when I say save, you download the code being compiled by App Inventor for you. And you just have to wait until you can completely download it to your hard disk. Okay, so we also have to experiment with the things, but this time I wanted to explore things like my projects, gallery, the guide, and also recorded issue. There's also the thing as language preferences here, but I still wanted to use English since it's the only thing that I can please understand. Okay. Even though I'm Filipino, I still prefer English language to be seen on my app development environment. Okay, so let's start with a new one. Okay, let's try to create and build application. So let's start with simple app. Okay. Again, just click on OK when you're done with, and when you're done, you can see the newly created application will be on the list. This time, this will be the view that we are expecting to start with. Okay, so let's start with our application. Let's say we wanted to create an application, the sample guessing game. Let's start with the label. The label will be enter a number from 1 to 5. Let's limit the number up to that value. And next will be a text box where we allow our user to enter a value which is visible to them. After that, we need to insert a button that will run codes to check if you guess it right. Say, for example, we will have to rename our text button here under the text. Okay. Again, clicking once on the object here, the button, and look under the properties to change the value of the text. Text means the title of that button. Okay. In case you are a Visual Studio programmer, let's say confirm. Okay. There. It really looks like now a real app. Okay. Next, we wanted to display the value with the label. This time it has to be a hidden label for now. Okay? Let's say erase anything in it and press enter. Next, we'll have to rename our objects here. Instead of label one, we'll have to name it according to their purpose. Let's say LBL as for prefix, LBL number, and for our text box, we have to rename it as txt number, and a button, we'll have to rename it as btn confirm. And the label number 2, LBL congratulations, or LBL message, since it's a message that will tell the user if they guess it right, if he or she guesses it right. Next will be the coding part. But once you're done with your design, under the designer view, we are now going to click on the blocks view or blocks tab. Next, today we're going to implement the event-driven concept in our programming. Now, the event-driven programming allows us to create events that will be used by the program to run and execute a code. Okay. Now, it really needs a trigger to execute it. When we say trigger, there should be a stimulus that will allow them to run, execute code. So, for starter, since it's a trigger, we can say let's start with any of these blocks under the button. Now, why did I choose a button? Simply because when the user are done with encoding the value, the next thing that he or she will do is to click on the button, and that button is only used for confirmation, right? So for the confirmation that the user is looking for a value, looking for answers, and that answers can only be processed by a button. But this time, the button will allow us to process something we wanted that button to process if the user value matches the magic word. This time, let's say the magic word is 777. For now, let's say if yeah, for the if, and then this is a conditional statement. If something is true, then you have to do this. Okay? That's why its structure was meant into doing or processing a logical form. So since I said the word logical form, we have to go to the logic section. The logic section allows us to use true or false or not, and equality, the and or operation. What we really need is the equality. Okay, the equality statement. Now we'll have to snap it here. Whatever I do here when it comes to coding, I only use the snapping, or I only try to connect blocks onto another. Next, we have to attach another block, which I believe we can do that only with a text box. Okay. Here, for example, if a text box is text box value is to be evaluated, we'll have to change that method or object or attribute, or that attribute into text rather than the background color. So with that in mind, you can just change it. Okay. Next, snap it there. Now this means that if text number dot text is equals to, which as I mentioned a while ago, it should be 777, right? Let's try to check on the text. Okay, under the text, we can encounter this block, which means to enter something inside of it. Okay. Since it's waiting for a value, you can just snap it and encode the value 777. There. That's it. Now then, what do you want it to do here? If a user gets it right, then we will have to set a value onto the message. With that, let's say set toggle message text value. Okay. And snap it again under that line of code. Now, this means that if text number is equals to 777, then set the text of a label message to what? Let's say congratulations. Let's try to congratulate the user who guessed it wrong or correct. There, that's it. Now, since we're done with the logic, okay, we're done with the code of our program, the next thing to do is to compile it. Clicking again the build and choose app save up to my computer. The APK file will be then downloaded to your computer. Just have to wait until this percentage is done. Okay. Let's wait until it's completely downloaded onto my computer. It will take a time. Maybe just less than a minute. Okay. There. So I have here show in my folder. We'll just have to click on it. And there. We have the simple APK file. Just have to transfer it onto my smartphone. Now there you have it. Now we know how to create simple application using App Inventor 2. Now, if you wanted to improve your application, okay, and if you wanted to display a different message, which I failed to include in this simple application, because having that will also be having another message to be included. But if you wanted to go that far, you can also use this if then else instead of using my if then structure here. Okay, this block is only intended for evaluating a condition, okay, into true, and then it will only display what it should have to do. Okay, and it doesn't care about anything else. But if you wanted to at least catch the other value that might be encoded, then you can use this instead of using the if then. Okay, so there you have it. Now let's move on to my other projects. Okay, now since that is only for a simple application, let me just take you another project that I have here. Now this is your seat work. Okay, this time you will have to create, okay, two text boxes and another button here. Now you will have to hide another label at the bottom of your screen, which will display a notification or a message. Okay. Now, what is this all about? This is just a simple calculator application. Okay, and in this calculator, this is the code. I want you to try it out. With that, I want you to have the same code that as I have here. The block for button, which is the event or the trigger. When the button was clicked, then this line of code will be executed. Okay, set label text to text number 1 to text number 2. All of those two numbers should be multiplied. Okay, so whatever the value that they come up with, whatever the value that comes into text number 1 and text number 2 will be sent to the label 1.text, which is what we mean by the properties. Okay, whatever the value that the answer that comes into these two text boxes will be sent to the label as a text. Okay, now there. I want you to build that. Okay, moving on. Next will be a challenge. When you're done with that sheet work, okay, this will be graded. You will need to create and build an application that will accept a value, text number, and that application should compute and display the square and a cube of the text num value. Deadline for submission would be on July 22 at 10 p.m. That is challenge number 1. Challenge number 2, you will have to build an app that will accept 3 grades: text recitation, text quiz, and text examination. The app must determine if the average grade is pass or fail. The passing grade is 80 and above. Again, when we say 80 and above, that is only for 80 and up to 100. If it reaches 101, definitely there will be a message that will correct them or notify the user that they are out of bounds. Okay? Definitely will the application must have that. So again, deadline for submission will be on July 22, 2018 at 10 p.m. Thank you very much for watching my video tutorial of the App Inventor 2. That concludes this video. Thank you very much.